doing a session on audiobooks, a little bit of that creative process. And I'm doing a plug for the audiobook recording available on the Innovative Potential website. The audiobook is entitled The Electrochemical Generation of Reactive Toxicants and Their Application as Chemotherapeutics. It's based on the Master of Science thesis, Electrochemical Generation of Reactive Species, and their application is chemotherapeutics. And it's available on the innovativepotential.com website. So what I want to get into is the audiobook is basically it was actually not all that difficult. There we go. The audio, actually making an audiobook, if you can put yourself on camera and do a stream, it's like you can totally do an audiobook, and it's like it's not difficult or hard, but it depends on the success of the book depends on a couple of factors. Basically, what is the level of the material that you're doing it at? Did you practice the material? So it's like, did you pick a kid's book? Like, if you're into voice acting, if you do that professionally, picking up a kid's book, a couple of read-throughs, and maybe even no read-throughs as a kid's book, you can do that, and it's just like it's all good. But if it's your first time in front of a microphone, then that changes everything a little bit. And that's kind of what I want to talk about, because this was my virgin experience in front of the microphone kind of thing. And audio work in general is the first time doing audio work. Like you really want to hear the action kind of thing, but you don't know what you don't know what but it's just the first time. It's like the first time excitement. It's like it was. Basically, we were stuck in May. COVID was the first COVID lockdown. It was looking like COVID was sort of like here to stay kind of thing. So we're just looking for like, okay, what's a fast, make work. I want to be done in 6 weeks tops. Just to sort of like, maybe there's like 3 or 4 of those types of projects out there that I could do at home. With a computer and the internet, like what can you do? So in that time frame, let's slap together. Let's do a website and a audiobook. So threw up a website really fast. Then there was I had the wheel things from before. I had the wheel things from before, and they went up on the kind of creeped Twitch out a little bit. Kind of got a feel for like what it's doing. Started looking into like, okay, well, what can you do from home? And the audiobook came up. That seemed to be a pretty good low-hanging fruit and a really good third eye option kind of thing, where it's like, no, you don't going through school, there were never any audiobooks. Like we have textbooks and we have lectures on the screen, but really sort of what you're talking about here is something that's entirely audio driven, but for technical content. and there isn't that available, because how do you make that sexy? Like, that doesn't sell. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't go anywhere. It's just sort of like, the first thing in your mind is that Al Gore thing from The Simpsons, where it's like, you are hearing me talk, and that. All truth be told, yeah, that is kind of. All truth be told, that is kind of what you're dealing with here. You're hearing me talk. And you're hearing me talk in a way to mature audiences about mature and complicated and technical subject matter. That takes a lot. That takes a lot out of you as an actor and as a performer. You're not really pretending in the sense that there is this sort of imaginary setting with an imaginary cast and multiple cast voices like you would in a traditional audiobook. What you're actually getting is one more of a solid, unified, detached type of voice. Not so much art, like it's artificially real or really artificial. It's sort of like you're looking at you're looking at a pair or a set of conditions that are not common to the everyday person. Even as you go through university, you're looking at the pictures in the textbooks, but you still haven't done anything in a lab yet. You might have had like your first year chem lab, but even still, that's all prescribed. This is more of like, we didn't have a game plan. We had to throw it against the wall, see what sticks, and then write the game plan from the goo we scraped off the wall, if that makes sense. That type of experience doesn't have words in the everyday. You might want to use sports analogies and stuff here, but when you're when you're using a language that is just naturally describing something that you actually can't see without the use of a microscope or something, that's what the science languages are, and that's what makes them difficult, because when you look at a desk, you don't see the microbes on the desk. So the natural development of the language doesn't have the microscopic microbes tied into it. So even in your common languages for sports, or for culinary foods, or for gardening, or for automotive repair, the closest thing you're going to get into automotive repair, what does the oil or the oil ratios look like? That's sort of that's a difficulty in a technical audiobook, but really what you want to kind of go with is what's translatable from what the material is trying to say into a first time experience kind of scenario, because that technical scientific literature is the first time experience. It's the recording of something that happened for a first time. If you turn the book, if you take any of these things and turn them upside down and look at them inside out, that's essentially what you're looking at. You're looking at a first time experience of having to go through this and not knowing what they're doing. And that's what I hoped to have captured in that audiobook. But for anybody wanting to do an audiobook, it's totally easy and simple, but at the same time meticulously complicated and like rip your teeth out level of like perfectionism kind of goes into it. First thing, if it, like, pick your book, pick your subject material, practice. By all means, practice. I put in 2 weeks of just reading this script out loud because I had never actually read it out loud before. It was never intended to be read out loud, and that's the problem with science stuff. It's not intended to be performed, so you're gonna get like weird thought-provoking type of sentences that have like commas and semicolons in them that are just like, does this thing ever fucking stop? Is your first thing in your head. But once you read through the sentence 3 or 4 times, it's like, okay, no, I kind of understanding what they're wanting to actually elicit in the person reading it. Or like, it's a way to transmit understanding. But as you're reading it for the blind audience, for that person who, you know, doesn't have the book or doesn't have the pictures, or it's their first time encountering the subject material, what are you actually describing when you're describing, you know, what you're describing? Lack of a better word there. So practice. It makes perfect. The other thing is, don't worry about too much about the sound. Get Audacity. I used Audacity. It was great. There's like a whole bunch of other things, but Audacity is in that like Winamp kind of family of just raw utility, and it's free for the most part, I think. I used the free version, and I used the ACX Check plugin. Just Google all this stuff, because that's how the world works now. You just Google everything, and all of your wonderful stuff comes up, and it's freely available. And what the ACX Check does is it scans the waveform of the voice recording, and it puts into it just basically says, did you pass the technical checks on it? And if you didn't, then you'd use another then you just use another plugin to make the changes and you know, basically make it happen. There's a little bit of cajoling there. There's a little bit of what you want to see is the how-to videos on YouTube that actually kind of address some of this stuff. There's enough people out there doing it now. It's not like it was 10 years ago. There's enough people out there doing it now. This is pretty common. This is pretty normal. Make sure you get your recording system set up to be able to match those technical things before you actually start going in and editing, because it's like, even though the computer's doing it, you're gonna have to listen to it for like different, like, did you cough or unintentional, or did somebody like bang the car door outside? Because the microphone is actually pretty ridiculously sensitive. I've had playbacks. I guess the word is playback. Sorry, I'm always struggling for a word here. I guess a playback is basically, you can hear birds chirping through the window, and the window's closed, and the blinds are down, and you can still hear birds and dogs barking and stuff going on around you in the recording, even if you like sort of build up your little, like, put the blankets up and like build yourself in that cloakroom type of closet kind of thing. So trying to find pockets of your day was the hardest point. But just getting that can I get like 2 hours of silence where nothing is, like, no one's mowing the grass, or no one is, you know, moving, or there's no fire truck, or, you know, construction happening. That was sort of the biggest thing. So once you kind of find those like sweet pockets there, it's a fountain of creativity. And that sort of, and that's up to you of how you want to deliver the lines in the script or in the audiobook. Don't be afraid if you don't understand. Like, if you don't understand a word, go Google it. You're building your own education as you're building your like your sound bite portfolio. And that's sort of like as a tool, the raw book as a tool is just filled with sound bites for if you wanted to get into voice acting, to have a scientist character, or at least be able to pull out like science words that aren't like Bill Nye level, but like Neil Tyson deGrasse level, or like beyond. That's where you kind of get it. It's a manual. It's a tool manual. So, open it up randomly and look, sodium citrate, like random words like that you're not going to speak. The next best thing is picking up an ingredients list and reading the vocabulary of the ingredients list. There's a whole chapter of an ingredients list read basically in the audiobook that is like, no, it's as important to say, or to have said, but as a learning tool, it's just as important to know that those types of words exist. It's not to show off, but it is to gain that type of... One time I auditioned for a part with this audio clip from this book, and like that, people get jobs because of this type of divergent thinking. Anyway, there's a lot you can do. There's a lot that can be done. But basically, after you get your quiet space built, and you've practiced your lines, and you've cut out all of your caffeine and your extra sugar and your pops, your sodas, your Cokes, stuff that's going to make your voice be like, that's going to dry out, that's going to sort of dehydrate you, or that's going to give you phlegm or mucus or any types of like vocal secretions. Try and cut that out of your diet during your practice phase, because it's like tea as well. Get rid of all that stuff. Just stick to water. Those Mio things, those like water flavorants, they come in like lemon, lime, and stuff like that. That kind of, actually, it was the summertime, so it worked out great. Cut out alcohol, like all that stuff, and just get in the zone is like, and just like make it happen. So you read your lines, you get the audio quality and tone you want to, and while you're at it, stop smoking, no vaping, none of that stuff. But basically, try and center yourself and give yourself that voice, try and at least approximate the voice that you want to have delivered. It's like, and stand up when you do it. It's so much, you get more out of yourself. You're standing up straight. Work on your diaphragm and posturing when you are delivering these types of words. It gets delivered better. It just gets delivered better. You know what you know what you want to hear, and get as close as you can. Get as close up as you can to make that happen. And that'll get you as far as having something that is going to flow in terms of your waveform. So you open up your Audacity, you get your speech to waveform. You clean it up, you run it through the algorithms, you run it through the word escapes me here, and I want to. It's standards. You hit those technical standards through the computer program. That just takes time to learn how the computer program is going to, how it works, and how to record for it. The biggest trick I did there was I ended up suppressing out the background noise, and then recorded the background noise and recorded just the background noise. And then I had a separate like audio line, or there was the voice without background, and then there was like an artificial background recorded that in the final version gets a background in, so that it can meet the technical standards of the ACX. I think that's what it is. Yeah, the ACX check, basically. The next thing for the audiobook, it was pretty fast. I would do another one. Yeah, I could do another one, no problem now. But it was the learning and the perfectionism and getting everything, getting what you want in your performance available and getting it to happen. That's where you just basically have to sort of ignore and just sort of try it. If you're in the Twitch or the streaming world, you've already built up enough camera and audience interactions. You have the microphone, you have the equipment. Make a stream day out of it, kind of thing. If I do another one, I might just make a stream day out of it. But try it. It's not that. It's not that an expensive buy-in. If you already have a computer set, if you already have a computer set up, it's not that much of an expensive buy-in. Making sure that you actually own the material or have rights to the material, something totally different. Contact the authors, contact the rights holders, but in this case, I own the book, so that kind of fixes most of the problems. But even if you're a fan of it and just want to do it for yourself for your own personal time, I would totally recommend it. That's just one of those. What else do I want to say about audiobooks? I think I covered the technical. Oh yeah, there is. It was trying to paint a picture of An audiobook is a soundscape, and it's a soundscape to an experience, and it helps people create an experience for studying. It helps to create an experience for their own personal pleasure and their own personal enjoyment. And that's kind of where I put the value on an audiobook. If you're a scientist, there are no scientists recording there. It's like when you go watch a movie, the actor is recording their parts of their experience for the fantasy, but there are fantasies that are sort of linked in real life, and to have that firsthand personal account recorded, there aren't really any people in the technical sciences doing any of that, partly because it's either strapped for cash, strapped for time, strapped for funding, strapped for teaching. They're also teaching, so they're doing that part of. And I'm not saying they have to do tech demos, but for them to say, here's the here's the book chapter they just did. Here's the decompress from the book chapter. That type of stuff, it never gets decompressed. And that's a huge sort of untapped potential right there. Not as a lecture, but not so much a bullshit collector either. It's the halfway in between. It's not a formalized lecture, but it is sort of no, this is the way I understand it. It's the congenial talks among professors that don't get recorded, that really just draw the most no. There's $40 billion worth of untapped market space for professors just talking congenially to each other and calling bullshit on each other's bullshit. It's not the end of what you get in those academic papers is basically after the dust has settled. It's not the nerd fight. You want to watch the nerd fight. The audiobook of scientific literature is sort of a way to cast that spell of nerd fight. It's the I guess it's the way I pick a professor. If I don't know school, it's the way I pick a professor. It's can you there's your lectures plus your audiobooks plus your live stuff plus your science and tech demos plus your research and development contracts, and that's your school business basically. Everybody has their tools. And it's a way to communicate, and it's a way to reach another user base, because you can go off and do something and just still have this environment that you have created that is going to help you at least just block out the people who don't want to see you succeed, or block out the people who are not in your wavelength.